Building up to that big semi-final, joining us now live on India today, a former world champion, a former captain of the Indian cricket team, a legend in Sunny Gavaskar. Sunny bhai, I know it's a fine morning in Mumbai. It's nice, bright and sunny, no chances of rain. I checked on that. But what I want to know is, how are you feeling? What's your head and your heart telling you this morning?
Well, there's a feeling of excitement every time you're playing in the World Cup semi-final knockout. There's always a feeling of excitement, whether you're playing in it or whether you're going to be commentating on it or just going to watch it. And that is exactly the situation with me today. But this time around, with a lot more confidence about what this Indian team is capable of. In the previous few semi-final games, because maybe they were away from home, because the conditions were just a little bit foreign to us. It was just a feeling of apprehension before you went to the ground, but that kind of feeling is just not there this time around. There's just the confidence that this Indian team, the way it has played these 9 matches, the way the all-round performance with both bat, ball, and even on the field while fielding has been such that it gives me loads of confidence that India should go through to the finals by the end of today.
Okay, so as you point out, this particular edition of the World Cup, the Indian team have been head and shoulders above all other teams in the tournament. But they always say that when it comes to knockout, it's a completely different ball game because pressure plays a very important role. How do you see this Indian team, which in the recent past, I'm just saying, have sometimes wilted under pressure? Do you see a different mindset throughout this tournament, and which is why it gives you a lot of optimism in this semi-final that whether it be that pressure factor, they would be able to handle it slightly better than in the past instances?
Well, it's always good to have some pressure because it means that you care for the result. If you go without any pressure, you could possibly cross that little thin line between carefree and careless cricket. So no, I don't think that is good to go with no pressure at all. It's always good to go with a little bit of pressure because then you're looking at all possibilities and getting yourself mentally prepared for that. And I think this is what this Indian team has shown. If you have a look at how this team has bounced back from the first match of the tournament itself, when the Indian team was 3 wickets down with just 2 runs on the board, that massive partnership between Virat Kohli and KL Rahul took India to a win. Then when India were dismissed for 229, the bowlers came to the against England for 229. The bowlers came to the party and restricted England to less than less than the score. And so clearly, this team is equipped to face all kinds of conditions. And this team, I dare say, if it was playing even overseas, not just in home conditions, this team would go all the way.
Well, that's very interesting. I'm going to talk to you further about the conditions, the pitch that is going to be on offer today and whether India then would want to make any changes or not. But let's just focus on the opposition, which is New Zealand. I'm not going back into history. We'll probably talk about that a little later. But for the moment, just concentrating on this New Zealand team in this edition of the tournament. What have you made of this New Zealand team that have won 5 games, reached the semi-final? They very well could have won 7. One was a rain-curtailed game. They lost on Duckworth-Lewis, won by just a very short margin of 4 runs to Australia. What have you made of this New Zealand team? Because if you look at India's campaign, the only team that kind of challenged them in this tournament were the New Zealand.
Look, I think what this New Zealand team has done is that it's played with a lot less pressure than, say, India or any other team in the tournament because of the fact that cricket is not the number one sport back home in New Zealand. And therefore, the expectations are not all that great, and that's why they've just managed to slip under the radar and away from the spotlight. And they've got a very good team in terms of individual performances. We've seen from the captain on the young Rachin Ravindra to Daryl Mitchell. They've got a very good batting lineup, and even in the bowling, they've got a very balanced bowling attack. But they don't have an impact player at 5 or 6, which is needed. Somebody who can change the complexion of the game. So I do believe that could make the difference. But, cricket is a funny game. We all know that things can go wrong at the last moment. But I do believe that the Indian team is prepared for any eventuality.
Okay, now every time that we're looking at this semi-final, you can't help but go back to that 2019 semi-final. If I was to take you back then to now, because that's the only reference point we have in terms of a 50-over contest between these two teams at a World Cup, what has changed for the Indian team from that 2019 to this Indian team, and what has changed for the New Zealand team from that 2019 New Zealand team to this team?
Well, for the Indian team, what has changed is it's the sharpness in its bowling attack. It means that, whether you have a spin-friendly pitch, or whether you have a pitch which has got a little bit of, dew where the seam bowlers can get the ball to zip through. India has got, those bases covered. The other important thing for India, which has changed from 2019, is that it's got a settled middle order at 4, 5, and maybe even 6. You've got two batters who are in prime form. If you look at the Indian batting, apart from a Shubman Gill, who's got to a 90 but not to 100, all the numbers 1 to 5 have got hundreds. And when you've got a situation like that, your batting is really strong. It's with Surya Kumar Yadav not having had much to do. What had happened in 2019 was exactly that the numbers 1, 2, 3 were in such tremendous form that number 4, who was tried, there were several players tried at number 4, did not actually get the opportunity to be able to, play in a situation which demanded a little bit of caution. All he had to do was to go and try and slam the ball around in the last few overs that he got to bat. So when New Zealand dismissed the top Indian batters in that semi-final for not too much, the number 4 batter was found wanting. The mistake we had made earlier, before the team left, was to drop the regular number 4. Somebody who had been your number 4 for a year and a half, 2 years, you left him out of the team for whatever reason. And so you were then, throughout that tournament, searching for that number 4, which you never found.
Some very interesting numbers there in terms of the big difference between batting first and batting second at the Wankhede, specifically during this World Cup. And those are the things that we're going to discuss with Mr. Gavaskar, who joins us live on India Today. Sahiba, let's start with the pitch that is going to be used today. Now, we've heard various reports, including our own. We've got our own correspondent there who reported yesterday that it's quite dry, this pitch. We've seen a report in the leading English daily of the country saying that the Indian team management has asked for a much slower surface, slower than the one that we've seen at the Wankhede so far. What do you make of this sort of a pitch on offer in the semi-final?
Look, the pitch is there for both the teams, so I don't think there should be too much discussion on what this pitch will do or not do. I do believe that this Indian team is perfectly capable of handling any kind of surface. We've seen that in the tournament so far. And, if it's a drier pitch, which is likely to be the case simply because the rains have gone, so there's no hint of any moisture. Yes, it'll be one which there might be just a little bit of spin, no question about it. But the Mumbai pitch, the Wankhede pitch, is generally very good for batting. So I don't think there should be too much of an issue with the kind of bowling that we have. Bowlers who have bowled superbly, whether they're bowling first or bowling second, I don't think the pitch should be too much of an issue at all. I think this is typically, on the eve of the match when you have nothing to write about, then, you try and say, because you want to fill in your column inches, you want to talk about pitches and stuff like that. It's all, to me, it doesn't make a difference, because if the pitches change after the toss, then certainly have a conversation. But if the pitch is the same before the toss, I don't think any noise should be made at all.
Okay, so let's now look at the data that we have, and that's very interesting reading, because we've seen the average first inning score about 350 in this World Cup at the Wankhede, and that falls down to 188 in the second inning. So that's a massive difference, and it's all down to that first power play, when the teams that are batting second tend to lose about 4 wickets in the power play, whereas team batting first is not losing those many wickets early on. What do you think is the reason that you can put it down to, that when batting second, that first 1 hour, 1.5 hours is proving very tough for teams that are batting second at the Wankhede, specifically during this World Cup? It doesn't happen during the IPL. It does not happen during other ODIs which start at 3 p.m. or IPL that starts at 8 p.m. It's only happening during the World Cup. What would you put it down to?
Well, I mean, this is a game of cricket, so I don't think, too much should be read into these things. I mean, the stats guys, they're all very, very good at trying to produce all these kind of things. This is cricket. Things are going to, not go according to plan always, So I don't think, too much should be really read into, this thing and that thing. Look, as far as I'm concerned, I have not so far seen the pitch, so I have no idea what the pitch is likely to do. And even if I were to see it, there is no guarantee that you are able to read it. There's been no person in the entire history of cricket who could read a pitch accurately and tell you this is what is going to happen. So as far as I'm concerned, these things, these stats guys love these things. In the first 5 overs, this happened. In next 5 overs, you have these win predictors as well. There was a win predictor when Australia were 91 for 7, which said 5% chances for Australia to win. What happened? These are all things good for television and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I don't think you should be too concerned about it.
Okay, I'm not going to now quote just the stats or the larger picture. There's also, the Hawkeye data that's available with us, which does tell us in that first hour when you're batting second, the ball does seem to swing a little more in terms of degree than you see it in the first innings. And because you played a lot of cricket there, Saibhai, is it that period of 6 p.m. where that's twilight and then probably the ocean breeze, I believe, comes in around 6 o'clock at the Wankhede, so that first hour with the new ball around 6:30 when the second inning starts sometime can be a bit tough to bat on?
Well, that happens everywhere when the sun's just setting down, and therefore the air becomes just a little bit thinner. So therefore the ball swings a little bit more. In Mumbai, perhaps it does a little bit more than any other venue. Is because you're close to the sea. So there will be just that little hint of the sea breeze as well, which will help the ball to move in the air. And then when the dew starts to come in, then the moisture the hint of moisture makes the ball carry through to the wicketkeeper that much quicker as well. So, but that is something that you will find just about everywhere that you play. But in Mumbai, the difference would be the little bit of the gentle breeze that will help the white ball to move in the air a little bit more than it does at other venues.
Then what must the captain that wins the toss do? Because on one hand, we've seen it traditionally at the Wankhede. It's a great pitch to chase on. We've seen it in the IPL. We've seen it in a lot of bilateral series. But on the other hand, we have this data that tells you, no, there's a big difference between batting first, batting second, lots more runs when you're batting first. What must the captain that wins the toss do then?
I think what with the kind of attack that India has, and because it's a semi-final, it's a knockout game. It does make sense to bat first and put the scoreboard pressure. Whatever you might have scored, you might not have scored 300 plus. You might have got maybe like India did against England. You might have got under 250. But because of the fact that the scoreboard pressure in a knockout game is such, and if in that first 1 hour, if you get 4 or 5 wickets of the opposition, where, as I said, the ball, because of the little gentle sea breeze, the ball will move in the air a little bit more than at other venues. You take advantage of that, make good with that, and pick the wickets. Then yes, I think it makes sense for the captain that wins the toss to be able to put the scoreboard pressure and try and use that first hour of the team batting second to good effect for his own team.
Okay, final question, Saibhai, before we let you go. Would India then contemplate, assuming it's a drier surface, as you explained, maybe because the rains have gone, a drier surface, it is going to help the spinners, as you mentioned earlier as well. Also, we know that New Zealand have a lot of left-handers, 4 that I can think of in that batting order. Could you then tinker and think about bringing in an off-spinner in R. Ashwin?
It's something that the Indian team certainly will consider, but it depends. When you go to the Wankhede Stadium today, and when you have a look and see if the pitch is even drier, and so when you walk on it, if you feel that there is a little give in the pitch, where the pitch might start to crumble a little bit, then certainly yes, I think there is a case for bringing Ashwin in. Also because, as you said, that New Zealand has got 3 left-handers in their top 5. The openers, Ravindra and Conway, then there is Tom Latham at number 5. So yes, it makes sense to have Ashwin coming in. But in whose place? You'll have to bring him in place of Surya Kumar Yadav. So it's a risk in a way that you're taking. but it's a risk sometimes worth taking because your top five have batted so well that Suryakumar Yadav really has not been used much. So it might make
Okay.
sense to bring him in. But depends on what the pitch will be once you go
Right.
to the ground. If it is drier,